Seekers. That was, I don't know, it was sort of part of I Want to Take You Higher by Sly and the Family Stone, but it sort of wasn't. Anyway, the outfit, I'm going to be doing a trunk or treat thing at my wife's school, the elementary school where she works, and not having a real outfit to wear. I sort of put together this hippie outfit that I bought these at Spirit. Oh, Ziggy, what are you going crazy for? Maybe he saw my crazy sunglasses. Anyway, I bought these crazy sunglasses and this peace medallion at the Spirit Halloween store, and then I had this tie-dye and stuff already. But I'm going to change because I can't see with these glasses on. I need my prescription glasses. Anyway, that song was sort of based on I Want to Take You Higher by Sly and the Family Stone. But it was kind of my own variation on the theme of I Want to Take You. I don't know what Ziggy's barking at. Anyway, speaking of Take You Higher, the thing I wanted to do a video about today is one of those kind of perennial stoner things that people get into. So there's a guy I follow sometimes on YouTube called Jean-Michel Gaudier, and he makes these cute sort of science videos. And the first one he made was about Tabby's star, which was a kind of a fascinating thing to me because it came out in the news, I don't know how many years ago, several years ago, because there was this star with a certain dimming pattern which indicated that there was something big passing in front of the star at regular intervals. And some people thought, and it was kind of a plausible theory at the time when the star was first discovered to have this dimming pattern, that it could be what they call a Dyson sphere or a Dyson object, which would be a megastructure being created by an intelligent alien race to capture energy from the sun, from the star that the planet was orbiting. So it was kind of a plausible alien. It could have been aliens. Maybe it was aliens. Later researchers thought that maybe it was dust particles, and now there's still some people who think it might be aliens, but that theory is kind of sunk down. But Jean-Michel Gaudier did a video about that, and that led to him doing a whole channel of videos. And one of his more recent ones, he does these things that are like 10 spooky solutions to, and then it'll be some kind of scientific thingamabob. And this latest one was called, or I don't know if it's its latest, but it's a recent one, 10 spooky solutions to the simulation hypothesis. And the simulation hypothesis is something that might be of interest to people who, follow a Buddhist channel, especially a goofball Buddhist one like mine. The simulation hypothesis is this idea that this entire universe, the one we're living in right now, is a kind of simulation, that it's not real, that it's something that's artificially created. And I'm going to go into these different 10 possibilities that Jean-Michel Gaudier put together. And I'll let you watch his video about it because he goes into detail about 10 different versions of them that I'm going to go through pretty fast. And I'll stop on the couple that I think are the most interesting and kind of skim over the ones that I think are the least interesting. But the reason I bring these up is because in a kind of way, the whole non-duality thing, that Buddhism and certain forms of Hinduism and certain forms of mystical Christianity and mystical Islam and the mystical forms of just about every religion that I know of, most of them kind of land on something that's vaguely in some ways similar to the simulation hypothesis. I wouldn't say it's the same, but the idea that what we see, what we take in with our senses, is not reality, is sort of a... that what we see as reality is not reality itself, is an idea that is kind of something that Buddhism kind of supports. For example, I'll give you an example. Nishijima Roshi, I remember talking to him about a certain book that Philip K. Dick wrote, and it's called Time Out of Joint. And in Time Out of Joint, it was written in the 50s, before the simulation hypothesis. A lot of those ideas really took off, but in Time Out of Joint, it kind of is a simulation hypothesis book, and there's a scene in which... Okay, the plot is that it takes place in the far future year 1995, I think. And this guy is living in a simulated 1950s, which is when the book was actually written. And he's actually living in the 1990s, but it's a simulated 1950s, and the way he finds it out is he's going to buy a soft drink at a soft drink stand, and he gets his soft drink and he puts his quarter on the counter to pay for the soft drink. The quarter falls through the counter, and he sees that the soft drink stand isn't really there, but on the ground is this little piece of paper that says soft drink stand. And I remember describing that scene to Nishijima Roshi and saying it was kind of, I thought, similar to, vaguely similar to some of the ideas we have about reality in Buddhism. And he said, oh yeah, it's kind of going in that direction. So, okay, that's why I think this might be, vaguely, sort of, kind of, at least worth your time for amusement on this video. So, here's some of the simulations that Jean-Michel Gaudier puts forth. Number 10 is we're the byproduct of an alien simulation, which is aliens are trying to simulate something and we don't know what it is, and we're just a kind of byproduct of their giant simulation. I'm not too into that one. Number 9, we're an ancestor simulation. Our own distant descendants are trying to figure out what their past was like, and they've simulated this to try to figure out what their own past was like, and this is just a simulation. I don't find that really interesting. We're a computer simulation is one that's really popular among the geeks, but, that we're living inside a computer game like, what was that movie, Tron or something. I don't like that. The unknown simulator is too vague to get into. We just don't know who's simulating things. Nature's True Guys is simulations. I might go into that one. Let's pass that one for now. Fever Dream of a Boltzmann Brain, that's one I want to talk about, so I'm going to go past it. Brain in a Vat Matrix, that's one I used to think about when I was a kid, like if you were just a brain in a vat being fed all this information, you wouldn't know that you were a brain in a vat. Well, yeah, sure, that's what the Matrix movies are based on. I don't really like that one. You Are the Simulator, that one is sort of interesting. Echoes of the Universe, I don't get that one, so I'm going to let you watch the Jean-Michel Gaudier video and figure that one out. And Mirror Hypothesis, that's another one I don't get, so I'll let you watch that. They seem really sci-fi, so let's skip past them. But let me talk about the ones that I liked the most. Okay, here's number 5, the one he calls Fever Dream of a Boltzmann Brain. Okay, so let me just read to you what he says. The idea of an infinite time looms large in cosmology. There are only two options. Either time extends infinitely into the future or it doesn't. I think Dogen might have some qualms with that, but maybe we'll leave that aside for now. Both options come with disturbing possibilities. If time does not go on infinitely, then what stops it? Does that imply an ultimate end of the universe? If it does extend infinitely into the future, it's even worse because it means that everything that can happen will happen if you wait long enough. It's kind of an interesting idea to think about, especially if you're high.
I guess like saying when you try to extrapolate the end of the universe, you say if the universe is indeed infinite, then what does that mean? How far is all the way? And then if it stops, what's stopping it, and what's behind what's stopping it? So what's the end, is my question to you.
This also applies in an infinite universe, which ours could be. Anyway, let's just keep going. Couple an infinite universe with an infinite amount of time and strange things can happen. This evokes the Boltzmann brain thought experiment first proposed by physicist Ludwig Boltzmann in 1896. It goes like this. If you wait long enough, particles will come together to form objects of any complexity, including a conscious thinking brain, if only momentarily. In an otherwise dead and dark, far future universe, wisps of consciousness will repeatedly arise. I think Ziggy's barking at something that's in the tree over there. If one of those... Ziggy, what are you barking at? What are you barking at? Wisps of consciousness? If one of those wisps of awareness were to persist for long enough of a time to look around, see the universe is a lonely black nothing, and concoct either a simulation of what it once was like or invent a dream of an ideal or fantasy universe, it could be what we see. We could be the fever dream of a Boltzmann brain supercomputer. This one also comes with some baggage, however. In some theories about cosmology, a concerning possibility is that our own human brains are far more likely to arise from fluctuations complete with false memories than they are in how they actually appear to have come about, opening up the possibility that we are not what we seem and we are ourselves Boltzmann brains. Well, of course, you can't do much to disprove that, but anyway, that's an interesting one. Ziggy, what are you barking at? Is Timmy stuck in the well? Or do you think it's a Boltzmann brain? Are you a Boltzmann brain? Oh, really? Okay. Here's his number 3. You are the simulator. Cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore I am. Words made famous by René Descartes. The idea here is that the simulator is actually you in some other reality modeling a different or perhaps identical version of yourself. After all, who wouldn't want to take a look at an alternate reality version of oneself? Here the motive of simulation really just boils down to curiosity about oneself and alternate versions thereof. And while we don't have the capability of running simulations of this nature, some other version of ourselves may. This aspect may be related in some way to the many worlds interpretation of quantum mechanics, where an original simulation diverges from the moment of its inception onward into infinite parallel realities, all being simulations. This one, however, seems the least likely because the resources involved would be titanic, at least from our perspective. On the other hand, in an alternate universe, the word resources may have a completely different meaning. It may not matter, in which case the simulations would be very different indeed from our alternate counterparts doing the simulating. It's a bit disturbing to think of oneself as merely a guise of something else, however. So those are two of the ones he brings up that I think are kind of the most interesting to think about. But Nishijima Roshi used to have this phrase that he would kind of come up with when people would sort of present him with ideas like this. And I was sometimes one of the people who would present him with ideas like this because I like thinking up stuff like this, and I get into science fiction, and I read a lot of Philip K. Dick and, that kind of stuff. And he would go, you can think about anything. You can imagine anything. And that's true. You can kind of come up with anything. So the brain can kind of come up with any solution or any explanation or any sort of thing that it wants to. But reality is reality. And what we're doing in our practice of Zazen is we're trying to get away from any sort of explanations. So this is the problem. When I did that video, I think it was last Monday, about Philip K. Dick's exegesis, he called it, where he tried to figure out this kind of weird experience that he had in 1974, where he thought he'd gone to a parallel universe in which it was the time of the persecution of the Christians and all this stuff. And he came up with this whole crazy theory about what reality was and so on and so forth. You can kind of come up with all sorts of those things. And if you think about it, you can kind of make anything sort of make sense. But that's not what we're doing when we do Zazen. We're trying to let go of all of that. So no matter what explanation you come up with, no matter what sort of, convoluted explanation that sort of fits the parameters and kind of, checks all the boxes and whatever that you're trying to come up with for reality, you reject it all. So no matter how many of these simulation hypotheses are correct, you reject them all. So this is why it's always, when you get into this sort of non-duality versions of what reality is, it's always in the Hindu tradition. There's this idea of neti neti, which means not this, not this. And the Buddhist tradition, as far as I know, we don't really have anything analogous exactly to the neti neti thing. But what I find in my Zen practice is kind of similar. Whatever your brain comes up with, of trying to figure it out, you reject it. So anything, whatever it is, doesn't matter how good it is. Even the Buddhist ideas themselves, you see this in Dogen's writings all the time. No matter what explanation he comes up with, even if it's the grandest, most wonderful, total Buddhist explanation, the canonical explanation, you just reject that. This is why the Heart Sutra is the way it is. The Heart Sutra denies all of the canonical Buddhist explanations of everything. That's the way I like to describe the Heart Sutra. It's as if you found a secret passage in the Bible that said no Savior, no God, no resurrection, no eternal life, or whatever. Whatever are the most sacred truths that the Bible, kind of puts forth. If you found this secret passage in the New Testament that denied all of them, that's what the Heart Sutra is like. It denies every aspect that's sacred to Buddhism. It says no to all of them because it's trying to get you out of that, saying even the best explanations we have for you, you've got to go beyond them and drop even them. So that's what I think of the simulation hypotheses, and I still like Jean-Michel Gaudier's videos, and I'll probably still continue to watch them because they're very entertaining. But I think ultimately none of these things, the simulation hypothesis and all these things, even though they're kind of fun to sit and think about, they're not the solution, and none of the solutions, even the best ones, even the ones that come out of the Buddhist canonical literature, none of them are the solution. None of them are the answer. There is no the answer. There you go. Okay, if you want to keep funding my search for the answer, you can do so by going to the URL you're seeing on your screen below, which is hardcorezen.info/donate. That is hardcorezen.info/donate. There you will find links to my Patreon and PayPal accounts. Those are my main and usually only ways of making a living, and I appreciate your support, but as always, this is offered for free, so you don't got to support me if you don't want to support me. We will see you next time. Have a good time all the time. I'm going to go see if I can figure out what Ziggy's barking at. We'll see you next time. Bye. Hey Ziggy, who's up in the tree? Is there something up in the tree? Have you ever seen it? Is there a cat? Is there a bird? A lizard? No? See something else? Well, I'm going to go inside and edit the video.